The Miami sun beat down mercilessly on Sofia Martinez's old Honda as steam began rising from under the hood. She glanced at her phone. 2:47 p.m. Her job interview at the prestigious Coral Gables Hotel was scheduled for 3:15 p.m., and she was still 20 minutes away. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for, a chance to finally move beyond her mother's cleaning business and build something of her own. As she pulled over to the side of the busy highway, her heart sank. But then she noticed an elderly man in an expensive suit standing beside a black Mercedes, clearly struggling with a flat tire. His silver hair was perfectly styled, but sweat beaded on his forehead as he stared helplessly at the deflated rubber. Sofia didn't hesitate. She grabbed her toolkit from the trunk and approached him. "Excuse me, sir, do you need help with that tire?" The man looked up, surprised. His piercing blue eyes held a mixture of relief and curiosity as he took in the young woman with oil-stained jeans and determined expression. Well, yes. I'm afraid I'm not very handy with these things. Are you sure you can manage?" Sofia smiled warmly. "My dad taught me everything about cars before he passed. I've got this." Hey everyone watching. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any episodes. And please drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from all over the world. Your likes and shares help this content reach more people who love these dramatic romance stories. Now let's see what happens next. As Sofia worked efficiently on the tire, the elderly man introduced himself as Henry Blackwell. His voice carried an authority that made her glance up occasionally, noting the expensive watch, the perfectly tailored suit, the way he commanded respect even from passing drivers who slowed to look. "You're missing something important, aren't you?" Henry observed, noticing her hurried movements and the business outfit she wore beneath her work clothes. "A job interview," Sofia admitted, tightening the last lug nut. "But some things are more important than schedules." Henry's eyes softened. In his 65 years of life, most of it spent in a world where loyalty was bought and respect was demanded. He rarely encountered genuine kindness without an agenda. Just as Sofia finished and stood up, wiping her hands on a rag, a sleek black Porsche pulled up behind them. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a man who made Sofia's breath catch in her throat. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and arms covered in intricate tattoos that spoke of stories and secrets. He moved with the confident grace of someone accustomed to being in control. His green eyes immediately found hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. "Dad, what happened? I got your text about—" Fernando Blackwell's words trailed off as he took in the scene, his powerful father standing beside a young woman who had clearly just changed a tire for him. "Fernando, meet Sofia Martinez. She stopped her entire life to help a stranger," Henry said, his voice carrying a pride that made Sofia blush. Fernando extended his hand, and when Sofia took it, she felt electricity shoot through her entire body. His grip was firm, warm, and he didn't let go immediately. "Sofia," he repeated, as if testing how her name felt on his lips. "That's beautiful." The moment stretched between them, loaded with possibilities, and an attraction so intense it was almost visible. Sofia found herself studying the tattoos on his forearms, intricate designs that seemed to tell a story of power, loyalty and danger. But something else caught her attention. Both men carried themselves with an authority that went beyond wealth. There was something careful in their words, something that suggested they lived in a world where trust was rare and kindness was even rarer. As Sofia gathered her tools, Fernando moved closer. "Let me at least pay for your time, or better yet, let me drive you wherever you need to go." "I missed my interview," Sofia said, surprising herself by not feeling as devastated as she expected. "But it's okay. Sometimes life has other plans." Henry and Fernando exchanged a look that Sofia couldn't quite decipher. "What if I told you," Henry said slowly, "that missing that interview might have been the best decision you'll ever make?" Capitulo 2. 3 days later, Sofia was still thinking about the encounter on the highway. She couldn't shake the image of Fernando's intense green eyes or the way her heart had raced when he'd spoken her name. But more than attraction, there was something mysterious about both men that intrigued her. She was cleaning the lobby of a downtown Miami office building when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Sofia, this is Henry Blackwell. We met on Highway 95. Her heart skipped. "Mr. Blackwell. Of course I remember. How are you?" "I'm well, thanks to you. Listen, I have a proposition. My son Fernando mentioned you missed an important interview helping me. I'd like to make that right. Sophia paused her cleaning, moving to a quieter corner. Oh, that's very kind, but really not necessary. I insist. What kind of work were you looking for? Hotel management. I've been studying hospitality while working with my mother's cleaning service. I want to build something bigger. There was a pause. Perfect. I own several businesses here in Miami, 5-star establishments. Would you be interested in meeting tomorrow to discuss opportunities? Sophia's hands trembled slightly. This felt too good to be true. Mr. Blackwell, are you sure? You barely know me. I know enough. You stopped everything to help a stranger. That tells me everything about your character. Tomorrow, noon, at Caf Luna on Ocean Drive. Fernando will be there too. He's very interested in our family businesses. After hanging up, Sophia stared at her phone in amazement. Her mother, Maria, looked up from where she was dusting nearby furniture. "¿Qué pasa, mija?" Sophia explained in rapid Spanish, and Maria's expression grew worried. "Be careful, Sophia. Men with that much power, sometimes they're not what they seem." But Sophia's mind was already racing with possibilities, and, if she was honest, with thoughts of seeing Fernando again. The next day, Sophia arrived at Caf Luna 15 minutes early, wearing her best dress, a simple navy blue outfit that she'd bought for interviews. The oceanfront restaurant was elegant, filled with well-dressed patrons and an atmosphere of quiet luxury. Henry arrived precisely at noon, but it was Fernando who made Sophia's pulse quicken. He wore a crisp white shirt that contrasted beautifully with his olive skin and dark tattoos. When he smiled at her, she felt that same electric connection from the highway. "Sophia, you look beautiful," Fernando said. "Beautiful," pulling out her chair. His manners were perfect, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. Henry got straight to business. "I own the Blackwell Resort chain. 5 properties in South Florida, all luxury establishments. I need someone with fresh perspective, someone who understands both hard work and genuine service." "What exactly would I be doing?" Sophia asked, trying to maintain professional composure despite Fernando's proximity. "Management training initially, working with different departments, learning the business from the ground up. If you prove yourself, there's a clear path to running your own property." It sounded perfect, too perfect. The starting salary would be $60,000, with performance bonuses and full benefits, Henry continued. Sophia nearly choked on her water. It was 3 times what she'd been hoping to earn. Fernando leaned forward. "There's just one thing. Our businesses, they require absolute loyalty and discretion. We value family above everything else, and we expect the same commitment from our people." Something in his tone made Sophia look more carefully at both men. There was a weight to their words that suggested this wasn't just about hotel management. "What kind of discretion?" she asked. Henry and Fernando exchanged another of those meaningful looks. "Sometimes our guests prefer privacy. Sometimes our business meetings are confidential. We need people who understand that what happens in our establishment stays there," Henry explained. Sophia nodded slowly. "I can respect that." "Perfect," Fernando said, his smile warm but his eyes serious. "When can you start?" "Monday?" "Excellent. Fernando will personally handle your training." As they shook hands to seal the agreement, Sophia noticed that Fernando's handshake lingered and that several other diners seemed to recognize Henry, nodding respectfully as they passed their table. Walking to her car afterward, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something much bigger than hotel management. But as Fernando had said goodbye, promising to pick her up Monday morning for her first day, all her concerns had melted away under the intensity of his gaze. Whatever the Blackwell family business really involved, Sophia was about to find out. Cap Tulo 3. Monday morning arrived with Sophia standing in front of her mirror, changing outfits for the 3rd time. She'd finally settled on a professional black dress when her phone buzzed. Fernando was outside. She opened her apartment door to find him leaning against a midnight blue BMW, looking devastatingly handsome, in a charcoal grey suit. The morning sun caught the silver details in his tattoos as he opened the car door for her. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, his voice carrying that slight huskiness that made her stomach flutter. "Good morning. Nice car," Sophia managed, sliding into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "One of many," Fernando replied with a grin that was equal parts charming and mysterious. The Blackwell Resort Miami Beach was stunning, 30 floors of glass and steel overlooking the ocean, with a lobby that screamed luxury. But what struck Sophia most was how everyone, from valets to managers, treated Fernando with a respect that bordered on reverence. "Mr. Blackwell," they said, not just acknowledging him, but showing genuine deference. Fernando's office was on the 20th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Biscayne Bay. As Sophia admired the view, she noticed Fernando watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm. "Tell me about yourself, Sophia. Really tell me. Not the interview version." She turned from the window, surprised by the personal turn. "What do you want to know? Everything, your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh, what makes you angry." For the next hour they talked, not about hotel business, but about life. Sophia found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone: her father's death when she was 16, her determination to build something bigger than what she'd grown up with, her love of old movies, and her secret dream of traveling the world. Fernando listened with complete attention, asking thoughtful questions, sharing pieces of his own story. He told her about growing up with expectations and responsibilities that sometimes felt crushing, about loving his family while sometimes resenting the path his life had taken. "Do you ever feel trapped by other people's expectations?" Fernando asked, moving closer as they sat on the leather couch in his office. "Every day," Sophia admitted. "My mother wants me to be safe, stable, but I want more." "More can be dangerous," Fernando said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Are you willing to take risks for what you want?" The air between them was electric. Sophia could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Depends on the risk," she whispered back. Fernando's phone buzzing broke the spell. He answered with a sharp yes, then his expression changed completely. "We'll be right there," he said, hanging up and immediately standing. "Sophia, I need you to come with me. My father wants to see both of us. Immediately." Something in his tone made Sophia's heart race, and not in a good way. They rode the elevator to the penthouse in silence, Fernando's jaw tight with tension. When the doors opened, Sophia stepped into what looked more like a war room than an office. Henry sat behind a massive desk, but he wasn't alone. 3 men in expensive suits stood around the room, all carrying themselves with the same dangerous authority she'd noticed in Henry and Fernando. "We have a problem," Henry said without preamble. "Sophia, what I'm about to tell you might shock you, but you're already involved, so you need to understand the truth." Sophia's mouth went dry. "Involved in what?" Henry stood, his blue eyes serious. "The Blackwell family doesn't just run luxury hotels, Sophia. We run Miami, and someone just declared war on us." The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. She looked at Fernando, seeing the truth in his eyes. "You're—" she began. "Yes," Fernando said quietly. "We're what people call organized crime. The Mafia, if you want to use that word. And 3 days ago, someone tried to kill my father." Sophia's legs nearly gave out. The kind elderly man she'd helped change a tire was a crime boss. The man she was falling for was his heir. "The attempt failed," Henry continued, "but they'll try again, and anyone close to our family becomes a target." "Which means," Fernando said, his voice heavy with regret and something deeper, "you're now in danger because of us. Capitulo 4. Sophia stared at the men in the room, her mind reeling. Everything suddenly made sense. The deference, the expensive cars, the way people looked at the Blackwells with a mixture of respect and fear. "I need to go," she said quietly, setting her purse strap firmly on her shoulder. "Sophia, wait." Fernando stepped forward, but she backed away. "No, this is not what I signed up for." Henry's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm afraid leaving isn't an option anymore. Not safely." "What do you mean?" Sophia's voice pitched higher. One of the men spoke for the first time. 3 days ago, someone photographed you changing Henry's tire. Yesterday, someone followed you home from the cafe. This morning, someone was watching your apartment building." The room seemed to spin. "Watching me? Why?" "Because," Fernando said, his hands clenched into fists, "in our world, anyone who helps the family becomes either an asset or a liability. And our enemies don't take chances." Sophia sank into a chair, trying to process. Her simple act of kindness had dragged her into a world she'd only seen in movies. "What happens now?" she asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Henry sat across from her. "You have 2 choices. We can provide you with protection while we handle this threat, or we can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere far from Miami." "Disappear?" Sophia looked at Fernando, whose face was carefully controlled. "Never see my mother again?" Never come home? It would be temporary, Henry said. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year. And the other option? Fernando answered this time. You stay close to us. We keep you safe. But you'll be in the middle of everything until this is resolved. Sophia closed her eyes, thinking of her mother, her dreams, her carefully planned future that had just evaporated. If I stay, she said slowly, I need to know everything. No more secrets, no more lies. If my life is at risk, I deserve to know why. Henry smiled for the first time since she'd entered the room. Fair enough. Over the next 2 hours, Sophia learned that the Blackwell organization controlled shipping, construction, and entertainment throughout South Florida. They weren't violent by choice, Henry explained, but they operated in a world where strength determined survival. We provide services the government can't or won't, Henry said. Protection for businesses, resolution of disputes, insurance against unpredictable events. Protection racket, Sophia said bluntly. In the simplest terms. Yes, but also legitimate businesses that employ thousands of people and generate millions in tax revenue. Fernando had remained quiet through most of the explanation, but when his father finished, he turned to Sophia. I need you to understand something. What we do, it's not a choice for me, it's who I was born to be. But meeting you, he paused, running his hand through his hair. Meeting you made me want to be someone different. The raw honesty in his voice made Sophia's heart ache. The people threatening us, she asked. Who are they? The Morettis, Henry replied. A New York family trying to expand south. They think killing me will create a power vacuum they can fill. And will it? Fernando's expression hardened. No, it will start a war. Sophia looked around the room at these men who lived in a world of constant danger, where loyalty was everything and betrayal meant death. I'll stay, she said finally. Sophia, you don't understand what you're agreeing to, Fernando warned. She stood, meeting his gaze directly. I understand that you helped create this situation by not being honest with me from the beginning, and I understand that running away isn't who I am. Henry's eyes showed approval. You'll stay at my estate. Full security, everything you need. What about my mother? Already protected, Fernando said. We moved her to a secure location this morning. Sophia's temper flared. You moved her without asking me. We saved her life, Fernando replied steadily. The Morettis don't leave loose ends. Despite her anger, Sophia recognized the truth in his words. One more thing, Henry said as they prepared to leave. Tomorrow night there's a charity gala at our hotel. The Morettis will be watching, expecting us to hide. Instead, we're going to show strength. Sophia, you'll be Fernando's date. Is that wise? Sophia asked. Fernando's smile was predatory. They want to see what you mean to us. Let's show them. Capitulo 5. Henry's estate was like something from a movie. 20 acres of manicured grounds, a Mediterranean mansion with 12 bedrooms, and security that would make the Secret Service envious. Sophia's room had a view of the pool and gardens, but iron bars disguised as decorative elements reminded her this was as much prison as palace. That evening, Fernando found her on the balcony, staring at the stars. Beautiful night, he said, joining her at the railing. I keep wondering if my life will ever be normal again, Sophia admitted. Define normal. She turned to study his profile. Going to work without armed guards. Dating someone whose biggest secret is that he doesn't like romantic comedies. Having a future I can actually plan. Fernando was quiet for a long moment. I've never wanted normal before, but being with you, it makes me understand what I've been missing. Fernando, I need you to be completely honest with me. How dangerous is this situation, really? He faced her fully. Very. The Morettis have already killed 2 of our associates in New York. They're not just trying to take over our business. They're trying to eliminate our entire family line. And you're going to fight them. I'm going to destroy them. The cold certainty in his voice sent a chill through Sophia. This was Fernando, the crime boss, not the charming man who'd made her laugh all morning. What if there was another way? What if you could walk away from all this? Fernando's laugh was bitter. You don't walk away from this life, Sophia. You either rule it, or it buries you. But what if? There is no what if. His voice was sharp. Then he immediately softened. I'm sorry, but you have to understand, this isn't just business, it's survival. They killed my cousin Marco last month, shot him in front of his wife and children. Sophia reached for his hand, feeling the tension in his body. I'm not asking you to be weak, she said quietly. I'm asking if there's a way to be smart instead of just strong. Fernando studied her face in the moonlight. What are you thinking? I don't know yet. But tomorrow night at this gala, I'll be watching. Maybe an outsider can see something you can't." The next evening, Sophia stood before a full-length mirror in a dress that cost more than her car. The emerald green silk hugged her curves perfectly and complemented the diamond necklace Fernando had insisted she wear. "For protection," he'd said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "There are tracking devices in the gems." Fernando appeared in the doorway wearing a tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and made him look like he'd stepped off a magazine cover. But it was the way he looked at her, with desire, protectiveness, and something deeper, that made her breath catch. "You're stunning," he said, crossing to her. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He placed his hands on her waist, and Sophia felt that familiar electricity between them. "Sophia, whatever happens tonight, whatever you see, remember that everything I do is to protect what matters to me, and what matters to you." His answer was to cup her face in his hands and kiss her. It was their first kiss, soft at first, then deeper as she responded. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "You," he whispered, "you matter to me." The Blackwell Resort's ballroom was transformed into a glittering wonderland. Miami's elite mingled with champagne and careful conversations, but Sophia could feel the undercurrents of tension. Henry worked the room like the politician he essentially was, charming donors while his security team maintained subtle but constant surveillance. Fernando kept Sophia close, introducing her as his girlfriend to anyone who approached. "There," Fernando murmured during a quiet moment, "by the bar, Vincent Moretti." Sophia saw a man in his 50s, distinguished-looking, surrounded by a small group that somehow managed to look both elegant and dangerous. "He's here, at your event?" "Showing respect for the dead," Fernando said grimly. "It's tradition to attend your enemy's funeral, even if you're the one who killed them. But your father isn't dead. Yet." Sophia studied the room with new eyes, seeing the careful positioning of Henry's men, the way conversations stopped when certain people passed, the elaborate dance of power and intimidation happening under the guise of charity. Then she noticed something else. "Fernando," she said quietly, "the woman in red talking to Moretti. She keeps looking at the service doors." Fernando followed her gaze. Maria Santos, Moretti's companion. But Sophia was watching the pattern of the woman's movements, the way she seemed to be timing something. "She's not just watching the doors," Sophia realized. "She's counting, timing the staff rotations." Fernando's entire body went tense. "They're not here to show respect. They're here to finish what they started. How long until everyone out now?" Henry's voice cut through the ballroom like a gunshot, and that's when Sophia learned that sometimes, even at the most elegant parties, the only way to survive is to run. Cap 206. Chaos erupted in the ballroom as Henry's security team moved into action. Fernando grabbed Sophia's hand, pulling her toward the kitchen exits, but they were too late. The lights went out. In the darkness, Sophia heard breaking glass, shouting, and the distinctive sound that made her blood freeze. Gunshots. Fernando pushed her behind an overturned table as emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the elegant room. "Stay down," he ordered, drawing a gun from inside his jacket. Sophia had known intellectually that Fernando was dangerous, but seeing him armed, his face hard with lethal intent, made the reality hit her like a physical blow. "Fernando, over here," Henry's voice called from across the room. "I have to get you out," Fernando told Sophia. "When I say run, head for that service door. Don't stop, don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." But Sophia could see in his eyes that he was lying. More shots rang out, closer this time. Through the chaos, Sophia caught glimpses of the battle, Henry's men fighting to protect the civilians while engaging an enemy that had planned this assault carefully. "Now!" Fernando pushed Sophia toward the exit. She ran, stumbling in her heels, dress torn from broken glass. Behind her, she heard Fernando shouting orders, coordinating his father's protection while returning fire. In the kitchen, Sophia found herself face to face with Maria Santos, the woman in red who'd been timing the staff rotations. "You're coming with me," Maria said, pointing a small silver pistol at Sophia's chest. "I'm nobody," Sophia protested, "just a hotel employee." "You're Fernando Blackwell's woman. That makes you very valuable." Sophia's mind raced. Her mother had always told her that sometimes the only weapon a woman has is her intelligence. "You're right," Sophia said, raising her hands. "He cares about me, but not enough to trade his father's life for mine." Maria's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "However," Sophia continued, stepping slightly closer. "If you kill me, Fernando will hunt you to the ends of the earth. And from what I've seen tonight, he's very good at hunting. Shut up and move." But Sophia pressed on. "The Morettis sent you to create chaos, not start a war with a grieving man who has nothing left to lose." Maria's hand trembled slightly. Sophia could see the woman calculating, weighing the value of a hostage against the cost of making Fernando Blackwell a man with nothing to lose. The kitchen door burst open, and Fernando appeared, gun drawn, face streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. "Let her go, Maria." "Your father's dead, Fernando. This is over." Sophia saw Fernando's face go white, then rigid with controlled fury. "No," he said quietly. "This is just beginning." What happened next would replay in Sophia's mind for months. Fernando's shot was precise, professional, final. Maria Santos crumpled to the floor, and Sophia learned that the man she was falling in love with was also a killer. "Dad?" Fernando spoke into his radio. "I'm alive," Henry's voice crackled back. "Wounded, but alive. Moretti's men are retreating." Relief flooded Fernando's features, but when he looked at Sophia, she saw the exact moment he remembered what she'd just witnessed. "Sophia." She stared at Maria's still form, at the gun in Fernando's hand, at the man who just saved her life by taking another. "Is this what loving you means?" she whispered. "Watching you kill people?" Fernando holstered his weapon, his movements careful, controlled. "It means understanding that sometimes violence is the only language our enemies speak. And what does that make you? A man who protects what he loves." Sophia looked into his eyes and saw the truth. This was who Fernando Blackwell was, not just the charming heir to a business empire, but a man capable of swift, lethal action when threatened. "I need air," she said, pushing past him. Outside, Miami's night air was cool against her skin, but Sophia couldn't stop shaking. Police sirens wailed in the distance, but she knew they would find a story carefully crafted by Henry's people. A robbery gone wrong, perhaps. Self-defense. Nothing that would stick to the Blackwell family. Fernando found her by the pool, sitting on a lounge chair, staring at the water. "Talk to me," he said, sitting beside her. "I don't know how." "Start anywhere." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "When I was 12, my father was mugged, shot and killed for $63 and a cheap watch. I've spent my whole life believing that violence only destroys, never protects. And now I'm in love with a man who kills people to keep them safe." Fernando's sharp intake of breath was audible. "You're in love with me?" Sophia finally looked at him. "Apparently I'm very bad at choosing safe options. Sophia, what you saw tonight. What I saw was you saving my life and your father's. What I also saw was how easily that gun fit in your hand." Fernando reached for her, then stopped. "If you want to leave, I'll arrange it. New identity, new life. Enough money to start over anywhere in the world. Is that what you want? I want you safe. I want you happy. I want you to have the normal life you talked about." Sophia studied his face in the moonlight, the strong jaw, the intelligent eyes, the mouth that had kissed her with such passion just hours ago. "What if I don't want normal?" she said quietly. "What if I want you?" The hope that flashed across Fernando's features was heartbreaking. "You don't understand what you're saying. Then help me understand. Show me who you really are. All of it. Let me choose with full knowledge." Fernando was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "If you stay, there will be more nights like this. More danger, more violence, more moments when you'll see sides of me that will scare you. And if I go, you'll be safe. And I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have been." Sophia reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then I guess we both need to decide what we're willing to risk for love." Damak, Cap Tulo 7. 2 weeks after the Gala attack, Sophia was learning that life with the Blackwells meant constant adaptation to a reality most people never imagined. She'd moved into a secure apartment in one of Henry's buildings, complete with bulletproof windows and a security detail that followed her everywhere. Her mother, Maria Martinez, had been relocated to a safe house in Orlando, and their twice-daily phone calls were monitored for security. The hardest part was not being able to explain why her daughter's life had suddenly become so dangerous. "Mija, just tell me you're not involved with drugs," her mother pleaded during one conversation. "No drugs, Mama, I promise." "Then what? Why can't I come home?" Sophia looked at Fernando, who was reviewing security reports at her kitchen table, and wondered how to explain that she'd fallen in love with a man whose enemies would kill her mother without hesitation. "There are some bad people who want to hurt me because of my job," Sophia said finally. "It's temporary." After hanging up, Fernando set aside his papers. "She deserves better than lies. She deserves to be alive," Sophia replied. "The truth would terrify her." "It should terrify you too." Sophia crossed to the window, looking down at the busy Miami street 20 floors below. Two of Henry's men were positioned on the corner, another in the coffee shop across the street. "It does terrify me," she admitted, "but not enough to make me leave." Fernando joined her at the window. "The Morettis are regrouping. Our sources say they're bringing in additional men from New York." "How many?" "Enough to turn this into a war." Sophia leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. Over the past 2 weeks, their relationship had deepened despite the circumstances. She'd learned that Fernando was fluent in 3 languages, held a master's degree in business from Harvard, and could make her laugh even when discussing life-and-death situations. She'd also learned that he carried the weight of his father's expectations like armor that was slowly crushing him. "What if we could end this without more killing?" she asked. "I'm listening. What do the Morettis really want?" "Control of our operations, the shipping, the construction contracts, the political connections." "But why Miami specifically?" Fernando considered this. "It's the gateway to South America. Control Miami, and you control a significant portion of the East Coast drug trade." "Drugs?" Sophia turned in his arms. "I thought you said your family didn't deal drugs." "We don't. But we control the ports and the officials who could stop others from dealing drugs. It's complicated." Sophia was learning that everything about the Blackwell organization was complicated. "So the Morettis want to use your infrastructure for drug running?" Among other things, an idea began forming in Sophia's mind. What if there was a way to give them what they think they want, while making sure they can't actually use it? Fernando's eyes sharpened with interest. "Explain." "I need to understand more about your legitimate businesses first. Real estate, hotels, construction. How much of your operation is actually legal?" "About 60%. "Why?" "Because," Sophia said, her mind racing, "sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy isn't to fight them directly. It's to let them win the wrong prize." That evening, Sophia joined Henry and Fernando for dinner at the estate. Henry's arm was in a sling from the gala shooting, but his mind was as sharp as ever. "Sophia has an interesting proposition," Fernando told his father. Henry set down his wineglass. "I'm listening." Sophia took a breath. "What if instead of fighting the Morettis, you sold them what they want?" "Absolutely not," Henry said immediately. "Hear me out. You sell them the Miami operations, but only the legitimate businesses. The hotels, the construction company, the real estate holdings." "That's our life's work," Henry protested. "It's also the part that makes you vulnerable to law enforcement," Sophia pointed out. "The parts that require public records, tax filings, regulatory compliance." Fernando leaned forward. "She's right, Dad. The legitimate businesses are what give the feds leverage against us. But without those businesses, we lose political influence, lose the ability to launder money, You lose the illusion of respectability," Sophia interrupted gently. "But you keep what actually matters, the loyalty, the territory, the real power." Henry was quiet, considering. "Plus," Sophia continued, "if the Morettis buy the legitimate businesses, they become subject to all the regulatory oversight you've been dealing with. Every transaction monitored, every employee background checked, every financial record scrutinized. They'd be trapped in legal businesses while we operate in the shadows," Fernando said slowly. "It's brilliant." "It's risky," Henry corrected. "What's to stop them from taking the businesses and then coming after our remaining operations?" Sophia smiled. "Because the sale contract will include non-compete clauses that effectively lock them out of your remaining territories. Legal contracts enforced by courts, not guns." Henry stared at her for a long moment. "You want to defeat the Mafia with paperwork? I want to defeat them with their own greed. They want respectability and power. Give them the first, but structure it so they can never achieve the second." Fernando reached for Sophia's hand. "There's more to this plan, isn't there? Once they're locked into legitimate businesses, they become predictable. Their movements tracked, their finances monitored, their associates identified through employment records. In trying to take over your empire, they'd actually be walking into a very elegant trap." Henry's smile was slow and appreciative. "You're suggesting we turn the entire law enforcement apparatus into our weapon against them?" I'm suggesting you use their strength against them. They want to be you, Henry. Let them try, and watch them discover that running a legitimate business empire is much harder than stealing one. Fernando squeezed Sophia's hand. Dad, this could work. It would require selling businesses I built over 30 years. To save the family you built over 60, Sophia said quietly. Henry looked at his son, then at the young woman who'd stumbled into their lives and might just save them all. Set up a meeting, he said finally. Let's see if the Morettis are smart enough to recognize a good deal when they see one. Capitulo 8. The meeting was arranged for neutral ground, a private dining room at the Four Seasons, with representatives from both families and their lawyers present. Sophia wasn't supposed to attend, but Fernando insisted she be there as his business advisor. Vincent Moretti was older than Sophia had expected, with silver hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He brought his son Tony, a man about Fernando's age who clearly resented being in the same room as the people he'd tried to kill 2 weeks ago. This is unexpected, Moretti said as they sat around the mahogany table. I was prepared for war. Not negotiation. War is expensive, Henry replied diplomatically. Bad for business on both sides. What are you proposing? Henry slid a folder across the table. Complete sale of our legitimate enterprises. Hotels, construction, real estate, shipping companies. Everything above board. Moretti opened the folder. Sophia watched his expression change from suspicion to surprise to greed. This is substantial. 60% of our total operations, Fernando confirmed, worth approximately 200 million in assets. And the price? 50 million, paid over 5 years. Very reasonable for what you're acquiring. Tony Moretti leaned forward. What's the catch? Sophia spoke for the first time. No catch, just standard business terms. Non-compete agreements, regulatory compliance requirements, employee retention contracts. And in return, the elder Moretti asked. The war ends, Henry said simply. You get what you came to Miami for, a legitimate business empire. We keep what we've always had, our family. Sophia watched the Morettis exchange glances. They were clearly tempted but suspicious of such a generous offer. Why would you give this up? Tony asked. Fernando's answer was perfect. Because my father is getting older, and I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. We want out of the public eye. It was technically true, Sophia realized. They did want out of the public eye, so they could operate more freely in the shadows. We need time to consider, Moretti Sr. said. Of course. But the offer expires in 72 hours, Henry replied. After that we go back to the old way of settling disputes. After the Morettis left, Sophia found herself alone with Fernando in the hotel bar. Think they'll take it? She asked. Absolutely. It's too good to pass up, and it gives them exactly what they came here for. And what happens to us? To this, Sophia gestured between them. Fernando's expression grew serious. That depends on you. What do you mean? If this works, if the Morettis buy the legitimate businesses, my father and I will be operating purely in the shadows. No more public appearances, no more charity galas, no more normal life. Sophia felt her heart sink. No more us? No more the US we've been. Being with me would mean accepting that you can never have a public relationship. Never get married in a church with your family present. Never have the normal life you deserve. But we'd be together, if that's what you want. Sophia stared into her wine glass, thinking about the choice she was being asked to make. A normal life meant safety, but it also meant giving up the man who'd become everything to her. Fernando, do you love me? His answer was immediate. More than I thought possible. Then stop trying to make my decisions for me. She stood, moving to the window overlooking Biscayne Bay. The city lights reflected on the water like scattered diamonds. For my entire life, people have tried to keep me safe. My mother, my teachers, my friends. Safe jobs, safe neighborhoods, safe choices. And what did safe give me? A life so small I could barely breathe in it. Fernando joined her at the window. Meeting you changed something in me, Sophia continued. Not just falling in love, but discovering that I'm capable of more than I ever imagined. I helped plan a strategy to defeat the Morettis. Me, a housekeeper's daughter from Little Havana. You're extraordinary. I'm extraordinary with you. Without you, I go back to being ordinary, safe, and slowly dying of boredom. Fernando turned her to face him. Sophia, you don't understand what you'd be choosing. There would be times when I'd disappear for days or weeks on business. Times when you'd have to lie to everyone about what I do. Times when the danger would be very real, and times when we'd be together. Times when I'd be part of something bigger than myself. Times when I'd wake up next to the man I love instead of dreaming about a different life. Fernando cupped her face in his hands. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her then deeply, passionately, sealing a choice that would change both their lives forever. There's something else, Fernando said when they broke apart. If you're going to be part of this life, you need to be able to protect yourself. What do you mean? Tomorrow, we start training. Self-defense, weapons, situational awareness. If you're going to be Sophia Blackwell, you need to be able to survive being Sophia Blackwell. Sophia Blackwell, she repeated, her heart racing. Fernando smiled, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. That is, if you'll have me. Sophia stared at the ring, a perfect solitaire diamond that caught the light from the city below. Fernando, marry me, Sophia. Be my wife, my partner, my everything. Looking into his eyes, Sophia saw their future, dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely right. Yes, she whispered, and with that single word, Sophia Martinez ceased to exist. In her place stood Sophia Blackwell, future wife of Miami's most dangerous man, and she'd never felt more alive. Capitulo 9. 3 months later, Sophia's transformation was complete. She could shoot a target accurately at 50 yards, had mastered 3 different types of self-defense, and could read a room for threats faster than most of Fernando's professional security team. She'd also planned the most elaborate sting operation in Miami criminal history. The Morettis had taken the deal, purchasing the Blackwell legitimate businesses for $50 million and immediately beginning their plans to expand into drug trafficking through the ports and shipping companies they now controlled. What they didn't know was that every business they'd purchased was thoroughly monitored by a joint FBI-DEA task force that Henry had been cooperating with for 2 years as part of his own transition strategy. The irony is perfect, Sophia explained to Agent Sarah Chen, the federal prosecutor who'd become their primary contact. The Morettis think they bought a criminal empire. Instead, they bought their own federal case. Agent Chen reviewed the surveillance reports spread across the conference table. 6 months of recorded conversations, financial transactions documenting money laundering, and direct evidence of drug trafficking operations. This is the most comprehensive RICO case we've ever built. Henry, his arm finally healed, looked satisfied. And once they're arrested, their New York operations will be vulnerable. The other families will move against them. Leaving your family completely clear, Fernando added. But Sophia noticed something in the reports that concerned her. Agent Chen, what about the Moretti family members who aren't involved in the criminal activities? Wives, children? Standard witness protection if they cooperate. And if they don't? Agent Chen's expression hardened. That's not our problem. Sophia felt Fernando tense beside her. She'd learned that his sense of honor included protecting innocent family members, even of enemies. Actually, Sophia said carefully, it might be our problem. Everyone looked at her. Vincent Moretti's daughter is married to a judge in New York. His youngest son is a pediatric surgeon who has no knowledge of family business. If they're destroyed along with the guilty family members, we make new enemies. What are you suggesting? Henry asked. We control how this ends. Make sure the innocent family members are protected before the arrests happen. Show them the same mercy we'd want shown to our innocent relatives. Fernando reached for her hand under the table. You want to warn them? I want to be better than our enemies. Agent Chen frowned. That could compromise the investigation. Or it could ensure there's no vendetta against your witness, Sophia pointed out. Vincent Moretti's daughter has children. If she loses everything because of our operation, what happens when those children grow up? Henry was quiet for a moment. She's right. We end this completely, or it never really ends. That evening, Sophia and Fernando walked along Miami Beach, the first time in months they'd been somewhere public without a full security detail. Soon we won't need guards, Fernando said, watching the sunset over the ocean. Will you miss it? The constant adrenaline, the danger? I'll miss the simplicity. In our world, enemies were clear, loyalties absolute. In the legitimate world, he shrugged, it's more complicated. Sophia stopped walking. Are you having second thoughts? About leaving the life, about us? Fernando pulled her into his arms. About us? Never? About the life? Sometimes I wonder who I'll be without it. You'll be the man who built something better than what his father left him. The man who chose love over tradition. The man who saved his family by being smarter than his enemies. And what will you be? Sophia smiled. The woman who helped you do it. They kissed as the sun set behind them, two people who'd found love in the most unlikely circumstances and chosen to build something new together. The raids happened at dawn on a Tuesday in October. Simultaneous arrests in Miami, New York, and Las Vegas netted 47 members of the Moretti organization, including Vincent and Tony. Sophia watched the news coverage from Fernando's penthouse apartment, now their shared home. The reporters described it as the largest organized crime bust in federal history. "How do you feel?" Fernando asked, bringing her coffee. "Like we just changed our entire lives. Any regrets?" Sophia thought about it seriously. 6 months ago, she'd been a housekeeper's daughter with simple dreams. Now she was engaged to a man who'd just handed over one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the country to federal authorities. "Ask me in a year," she said finally. Fernando's phone rang. "Dad? Already?" That was fast. Sophia could hear Henry's voice through the phone, excited and relieved. "The remaining families are already reaching out," Fernando told her after hanging up. "They want to negotiate territorial agreements, establish new boundaries. No one wants the war to continue, which means we did it. The Blackwell family is officially out of organized crime and into legitimate business exclusively." Sophia felt a weight she didn't realize she'd been carrying lift from her shoulders. "What happens now?" Fernando sat beside her on the couch, pulling her close. "Now we plan a wedding. Now we decide what kind of life we want to build together. Now we get to find out who we are when we're not running from bullets. And your father is already talking about grandchildren and maybe running for city council." Sophia laughed. "From Mafia boss to politician, that's quite a transition. From housekeeper's daughter to crime family strategist isn't exactly normal either." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Miami wake up outside their windows. "Fernando? Yes? I love you. Not the dangerous man, not the powerful heir, not the mysterious stranger who rescued me. I love you, Fernando Blackwell, whoever you turn out to be in this new life. I love you too, Sofia Martinez, the woman brave enough to change a tire for a stranger, smart enough to outsmart the Mafia, and crazy enough to marry into the most complicated family in Florida." "Former Mafia," Sofia corrected. "Former Mafia," Fernando agreed, kissing the top of her head. And for the first time since that day on the highway, Sophia allowed herself to believe that their story might actually have a happy ending. Capitulo 10. 2 weeks before their wedding, Sophia's carefully constructed new world began to unravel. She was having lunch with her wedding planner when Fernando called, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Sophia, where are you?" "The Biltmore. Going over final details. Why? Stay exactly where you are. Don't leave. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm sending a team to get you." "Fernando, what's wrong?" "Vincent Moretti escaped federal custody this morning. He killed 2 marshals and disappeared." Sophia's blood went cold. "How is that possible?" "Inside help. Someone on the federal side has been feeding him information. Sophia, he knows everything. About the sting, about your role in it, about the wedding." The wedding planner, a cheerful woman named Diane, looked up from her notes with concern. "I have to go," Sophia told her, standing abruptly. "But we haven't finished." "The wedding is postponed," Sophia said, her mind racing through implications. If Moretti had inside information about the federal operation, then nowhere was truly safe. Fernando's security team arrived within minutes, 4 men in expensive suits who escorted Sophia to an armored SUV with the efficiency of a military operation. Back at the penthouse, Sophia found Fernando and Henry in full crisis mode. The dining room had been converted into a command center with laptops, phones, and surveillance equipment covering every surface. "How bad is it?" Sophia asked. "Bad," Henry replied grimly. "Moretti didn't just escape, he was broken out. Professional job, inside information and unlimited resources. Who would have those kinds of resources?" Fernando answered. "Other families, the ones who lost territory when the Morettis moved into Miami. They want revenge, and they see breaking out Vincent as the way to get it." Sophia studied the surveillance photos spread across the table. "So this isn't just about us anymore. It's about a larger power struggle." "Exactly, and we're caught in the middle." Agent Chen arrived an hour later, looking haggard and furious. "We have a mole in the federal operation," she confirmed. "Someone with high-level access has been feeding information to organized crime for months." "Any idea who?" Henry asked. "We're investigating, but it could take weeks to identify them. In the meantime, Moretti is in the wind with detailed intelligence about everyone who cooperated in his arrest." Sophia felt the walls closing in. What about witness protection? Compromised. If our mole knows about the federal program, then nowhere in the system is safe. Fernando slammed his hand on the table. So what are you suggesting? That we just wait here for Moretti to find us? I'm suggesting you disappear. Completely. New identities, new lives, somewhere far from Miami. No, Sophia said firmly. Everyone looked at her. We didn't spend months planning the perfect operation just to run away when it gets difficult. There has to be another option. Sophia, Fernando said gently, this isn't about pride. This is about survival. This is about finishing what we started. Sophia moved to the window, looking down at the city she'd come to love. Somewhere out there, a man who wanted her dead was planning his revenge. Agent Chen, how did Moretti escape exactly? Prison transport. His convoy was hit by 6 vehicles. Military precision. And the men who broke him out? All dead. Moretti killed them himself before disappearing. Sophia turned back to the room. So he's alone now. No backup, no organization, running on rage and revenge. Which makes him more dangerous, not less, Fernando pointed out. Or more predictable. Henry's eyes sharpened with interest. Explain. A man alone, driven by revenge, with detailed intelligence about his enemies. What's the first thing he'll do? Come after us, Fernando said. Exactly. Which means instead of running, we wait for him, but we wait smart. Agent Chen shook her head. You're talking about using yourselves as bait. I'm talking about controlling the engagement instead of letting him choose the time and place. Fernando was already following her logic. You want to draw him out. I want to end this permanently. Vincent Moretti will never stop hunting us. The only way we ever have a normal life is if he's no longer a threat. And how do you propose we do that? Sophia smiled, the same smile she'd worn when proposing the original sting operation. We give him exactly what he wants, a chance to kill the people who destroyed his family. The plan Sophia outlined was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its risks. They would announce that the wedding was back on, scheduled for the following Saturday, at a small church in Coral Gables. Limited guest list, minimal security, the perfect target for a man seeking revenge. You're insane, Agent Chen said flatly. She's brilliant, Henry corrected. Moretti can't resist the symbolism. Killing Fernando and Sophia at their wedding would be the perfect revenge. And if something goes wrong? Fernando asked. Then we die, Sophia said simply. But if we run, we spend our lives looking over our shoulders. If we hide, we never really live. This way, one way or another, it ends. Fernando studied her face. You're serious about this? Completely. Then we do it right. Full surveillance, backup plans, and if anything feels wrong, we abort. Agent Chen was still shaking her head. I can't officially support this operation. Then unofficially support it, Sophia said. Help us catch the mole in your organization, and help us end Vincent Moretti permanently. That night, Sophia and Fernando lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Having second thoughts, Fernando asked. About the plan? No, about marrying you in the middle of it, maybe. Fernando rolled to face her. We could postpone again. Have a real wedding later when this is over. Or we could get married now when it matters most, when we're choosing each other despite everything trying to tear us apart. A wedding ceremony with snipers in the bell tower and federal agents in the congregation. A wedding ceremony where we promise to love each other no matter what comes, where we choose our future together, even if we're not sure we'll live to see it. Fernando kissed her forehead. In that case, Mrs. Soon-to-be Blackwell, let's plan ourselves the most dangerous wedding in Miami history. Already on it, Mr. Blackwell. Already on it. Outside their window, Miami glittered in the darkness, beautiful and dangerous and full of possibilities. In 6 days, Vincent Moretti would try to kill them. Sophia had never been more ready for anything in her life. Capitulo 11. The morning of the wedding, Sophia woke before dawn with a clarity that surprised her. Today she would either marry Fernando Blackwell or die trying. Either outcome felt better than running. Her wedding dress hung in the closet. Simple white silk that could be worn with body armor underneath, designed specifically for a ceremony where the bride might need to move quickly. The something blue was a tiny tracking device sewn into the hem. The something borrowed was Agent Chen's backup pistol strapped to her thigh. Fernando found her on the balcony, watching the sunrise over Biscayne Bay. Beautiful morning for a wedding, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Beautiful morning for an ending, Sophia replied. That's morbid. Even for us. Sophia leaned back against his chest. Not dying. ending the running, the fear, the looking over our shoulders. Today we get our life back one way or another. Fernando's phone buzzed with updates from their security team. Vincent Moretti had been spotted twice in the past 24 hours. Once near the church, once watching Sofia's mother's temporary residence. He's definitely planning something for today, Fernando said. Good. I'd hate to get all dressed up for nothing. The Church of the Little Flower in Coral Gables was small, intimate, and perfectly suited for both a wedding and a tactical operation. Agent Chen's team had the building wired with cameras and microphones, while Henry's security personnel were positioned throughout the neighborhood. Sofia's mother arrived first, still confused about why her daughter's wedding had been postponed and then suddenly rescheduled, but happy to finally see Sofia marry the man who'd clearly made her daughter radiantly happy. "You look beautiful, Mija," Maria Martinez said, adjusting Sofia's veil. "Thank you, Mama. And you're sure about this, Fernando? About this family?" Sofia looked at her reflection in the small mirror of the church's bride room. The woman staring back looked older than 23, more sophisticated, but also more alive than she'd ever been. "I've never been more sure of anything." The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock. By 3:30, 30 carefully selected guests had arrived. Family friends, Henry's business associates, and several federal agents disguised as wedding guests. Fernando waited at the altar in a classic black tuxedo, looking handsome enough to take Sofia's breath away. But she also noticed the slight bulge under his left arm, where his shoulder holster was concealed, and the way his eyes constantly scanned the church for threats. The priest, Father Miguel, was a family friend who'd agreed to perform the ceremony, despite being told there might be security concerns. He blessed the rings with hands that shook slightly, whether from age or nerves. Sofia couldn't tell. At 3:55, Sofia took her position at the back of the church. Through her earpiece, she could hear the security teams checking in. "All clear, Sector 1. All clear, Sector 2. Movement in Sector 3. False alarm, just a delivery truck." The wedding march began. Sofia walked down the aisle on her father's brother's arm, her deceased father's wedding ring hanging on a chain around her neck. Every step brought her closer to Fernando and further into the life they'd chosen together. She was halfway down the aisle when the shooting started. The first shot shattered the stained glass window above the altar. The second splintered a pew 6 inches from Sofia's head. The third would have killed Fernando if he hadn't already thrown himself behind the altar, pulling Father Miguel with him. "Everyone down!" Agent Chen's voice cut through the screams as federal agents dropped their wedding guest disguises and drew their weapons. Sofia threw herself behind a pillar, her wedding dress tearing on the marble floor. Through her earpiece, she could hear the security teams coordinating their response. "Shooter on the church roof. Second shooter in the bell tower. Multiple vehicles approaching from the east." This wasn't just Vincent Moretti. This was a full military assault. Fernando's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Sofia, status report." "I'm alive. You?" "Same. Can you get to the side exit?" Before Sofia could answer, Vincent Moretti himself appeared at the main entrance of the church, flanked by 6 men with automatic weapons. "Fernando Blackwell," his voice echoed through the chapel. "You destroyed my family. Now I destroy yours." Sofia realized with crystal clarity that the security plan had failed. Moretti hadn't come alone, and he wasn't interested in a subtle revenge. This was a massacre. But Sofia Martinez hadn't spent months training for nothing. She pulled Agent Chen's pistol from her thigh holster, checked the clip, and prepared to shoot her way to her own wedding. "Fernando," she said into her microphone, "meet me at the altar in 30 seconds. "Sofia." "No, stay where you are." "Like hell." Sofia stepped out from behind the pillar and began walking down the aisle, firing methodically at Moretti's men. Her white dress bloomed with red as bullets grazed her arm and shoulder, but she didn't stop walking. Behind her she could hear Agent Chen shouting orders, Henry's security team engaging the shooters on the roof, and sirens approaching in the distance. But all Sofia could see was Fernando at the altar and Vincent Moretti between them. "You want to destroy his family," Sofia called to Moretti, still walking forward. "Then you'll have to go through his wife first." Moretti turned his gun on her, and Sofia saw her own death in his eyes. The shot that followed echoed through the church like thunder, but it wasn't Moretti who fell. Fernando's bullet took the old man center mass, dropped him like a stone, and ended the Moretti vendetta forever. Sofia reached the altar as the last of Moretti's men surrendered to federal agents. Her dress was ruined, Her veil was torn, and she was bleeding from 3 different wounds. "Are we still getting married today?" she asked Fernando. Father Miguel, remarkably, was still conscious and functional, despite having spent the firefight praying behind the altar. "If you're both sure this is what you want," he said shakily. Fernando took Sofia's hands, both of them streaked with blood and gunpowder. "Sofia Martinez, will you marry me? Fernando Blackwell, will you marry me?" "I will. I will." "Then, by the power vested in me by God and the state of Florida, I pronounce you husband and wife." The kiss that followed was witnessed by federal agents, organized crime figures, and Sofia's mother, who was crying for reasons she didn't entirely understand. It was, Sofia thought, as sirens wailed outside and paramedics rushed in, definitely the most memorable wedding in Miami history. And absolutely perfect. Ducas Capitulo, 12. 6 months later, Sofia Blackwell stood on the terrace of their new home in Key Biscayne, watching her husband teach their security team how to properly maintain the house's defensive systems. The irony wasn't lost on her. They'd left organized crime only to discover that legitimate business came with its own varieties of danger. Henry had been elected to the Miami City Council in a landslide, his campaign based on bringing transparency and reform to local government. The fact that his background was in private security consulting had only enhanced his credibility with voters who wanted someone tough enough to clean up corruption. Agent Chen visited monthly, ostensibly for security briefings, but actually because she'd become genuinely fond of the woman who'd planned the most successful organized crime prosecution in FBI history while wearing a wedding dress. "Any regrets?" Fernando asked, joining Sofia on the terrace. "Just one." Fernando's face clouded with concern. "What?" "We never got our honeymoon. Between federal testimony, restructuring Dad's businesses, and setting up our new lives, we've barely had time to sleep." Fernando smiled, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. "About that." Sofia opened it to find plane tickets to Tuscany. "Fernando, 2 weeks, no phones, no business meetings, no federal agents. Just us, Italian food, and absolutely no one trying to kill us. What about the new hotel project?" "We'll wait." "What about your mother's citizenship application?" "We'll wait." "What about—" Fernando silenced her with a kiss. "Everything will wait. We've spent a year saving everyone else, time to save ourselves." That evening, as they packed for their delayed honeymoon, Sofia found herself thinking about the chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A flat tire, a job interview she'd missed, a kindness to a stranger that had changed everything. "Do you think we would have found each other anyway?" she asked Fernando. "If I hadn't stopped to help your father that day?" "Absolutely." "How can you be so sure?" Fernando zipped his suitcase and crossed to where she stood by the window. "Because you're the kind of person who stops to help strangers change tires, and I'm the kind of person who falls in love with women brave enough to marry into Mafia families. We were always going to find each other, even if it meant destroying your father's empire in the process. Especially then. That empire was built on fear and violence. What we're building now is based on something better." Sofia looked out at the lights of Miami, the city that had become home, that had tested them and nearly killed them and ultimately set them free. "I love you, Fernando Blackwell." "I love you too." "Sofia Blackwell, what happens now?" Now we go to Italy, eat too much pasta, drink too much wine, and remember what it feels like to be just a man and woman in love, instead of former crime family members trying to build legitimate lives." "And after that?" Fernando grinned. "After that we come home and figure out what 2 people who've already survived the impossible can accomplish when they put their minds to it." 3 years later, the Blackwell Foundation had built 12 schools in underserved Miami communities, funded college scholarships for 300 students, and operated a job training center that had placed over 1,000 people in legitimate careers. Sofia ran the foundation with the same strategic mind that had once defeated the Moretti family, while Fernando developed sustainable housing projects that were transforming entire neighborhoods. Henry, now in his 2nd term on the city council, had become the most effective advocate for criminal justice reform in Florida, drawing on his unique understanding of both sides of the law. And on quiet evenings, when Sofia and Fernando walked along the beach behind their home, they sometimes talked about the young woman who'd once changed a tire for a stranger, and the man who'd fallen in love with her courage. "Do you miss it?" Sofia asked one evening as they watched the sunset. "The danger, the excitement, the life where everything mattered, life and death?" Fernando considered this seriously. I miss the clarity. In that world, you always knew who your enemies were. And now our enemies are poverty, corruption, injustice. Harder to fight, but more worth fighting. Sophia smiled, thinking of the school they'd just finished building in Liberty City, of the 15 kids who'd gotten full scholarships to college this year, of the way Fernando's eyes lit up when he talked about their work. Besides, Fernando added, pulling her closer, I've got everything that ever really mattered right here. As if on cue, Sophia felt the flutter of movement in her belly. Their first child, due in 4 months. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked, placing his hand over her growing stomach. A baby whose mother once shot her way through her own wedding and whose father used to run organized crime in Miami? That kid's going to be able to handle anything life throws at them. Sophia laughed, imagining their child's future, growing up in a world of possibility instead of danger, learning that sometimes the greatest courage comes from choosing love over fear. I love you, Fernando. I love you too, Sophia. And in that moment, watching the sun set over the water, Sophia Martinez Blackwell knew that every risk had been worth taking.